Good evening, Unique Couples community. We are Vito and Linda Patrick. We are here in Freeport, Grand Bahama, in the Bahamas, and we just want to welcome you to another Unique Couples Sunday Night Live. Hope you guys are doing great on this Easter weekend. I hope you had a great day. Go
Mhm.
ahead and type in hashtag Live Squad for those of you that are tuning in. For those of you that are watching the replay, go ahead and type in hashtag replay.
Yes.
We are here this evening and we're going to be in for a great time. We have special guests in the house, Dominick and Tamara Antonino from Dallas, Texas. They're going to be telling us their story, race, conflict, and more. So stay tuned as they're going to be introduced very shortly. If you haven't subscribed to the Unique Couples YouTube channel, you want to go ahead and subscribe to the Unique Couples YouTube channel. Make sure you turn on that notification bell and select all so you can know every time we go live here at Unique Couples. If you haven't signed up for the Marriage of Your Dreams course, you want to go ahead and sign up for the Marriage of Your Dreams course. The link is in the chat, it's in the description. Go ahead and sign up for the Marriage of Your Dreams course.
So we're all excited about, just so many things happening, and you just have to keep up the excitement in your marriage. It's not just something that you pick up on Valentine's and then leave. This is just something that you have to continually have in your relationship. And so you could go ahead, join us in the How to Strengthen Your Marriage Facebook group to connect with us and other couples on the things that you need to do on a daily basis to keep your love alive, exciting, and interesting. We also have a how to strengthen your marriage and have the marriage of your dreams challenge, right? So it's the how to strengthen your marriage and have the marriage of your dreams, even if your spouse doesn't want to challenge. So you could go ahead, join the wait list for that, and connect and have an incredible time. So we're excited about the topic today because we know that conflict happens before marriage, in marriage, and even throughout marriage. And today we have Dominick and Tamara, who will share on some of the challenges they had in their relationship and what they did to basically overcome them. So if you're here and you're watching and you know a married couple, go ahead and invite them to come on in and watch with us live. Okay, so go ahead and do that.
Yes. Hello, Dominick and Tamara. How are you guys doing?
Good,
Doing
good.
well, doing well. Thanks for
Okay.
having us.
Yes, happy to
Awesome.
be a guest.
Awesome. Awesome. It's great having you guys here. Also, can you go ahead and tell our viewing audience a little about yourselves?
So I am Tamara, that's Dominick, and this is our second marriage, both. I had a very short marriage and then he had a longer marriage and then we hooked up. But I think most of
You
the
said hooked up like we did something wrong. That
well,
sounded
not
messed
hooked up.
up.
We didn't hook up. I think one of the questions that we get a lot is how did you guys meet? So we met online, and I don't know.
I was in a catalog, and she went to the catalog and picked me.
No, so when we were online, I didn't realize the online. I don't think neither one of us. We were very new to this online dating thing, and I think God really put us together because we were so clueless. And the site that we were on was kind of a hookup site, which I didn't know until like after the fact, hearing it.
What do you mean it was a hookup site?
Like apparently people go on there just to hook up with people, not to get in a relationship, but just to have fun with each other and go on about themselves. So
Okay.
we didn't realize that. But we met, well, he started messaging me and he left a couple of messages and he left it open to whenever you're comfortable, then call me. Here's my number. And so he decided that's exactly what he did. He hooked me. So he decided that that he would just leave it open and up to me, which I appreciated that. And then I called him 5 a.m. to make sure that he wasn't laying next to anybody else. And so when he answered the phone, that was kind of exciting. He answered the phone. It was because I was like, he's not next to somebody else. He's probably not cheating. He's probably really is single. And so, is that my phone?
So you call them at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So that's a good one. You know, do those odd little hours and stuff so that, hey, you could know if they're the real deal. Like when they are quite not on their game and might not, you know, have any lies to tell. Single people, listen out, listen out.
Was the conversation short or long?
It was kind of short, I think. Do you remember?
Mm-mm.
I think it was kind of short because he was out walking the dog and actually had to get ready for work. So it wasn't long conversation. And then we eventually started talking on the phone regularly, and he invited me out to go to a play, which was probably about 45 minutes from my house. And he said he was going to pick me up. And I said yes. And then I realized, I was like, I don't know him. I was like, no, never mind. That's not what we're going to do. And so then I said, let's do something else. So he said, let's meet up and go out to have a meal. And I said, okay, we can do that. And when we did that, I was working on my doctorate degree and I had an assignment due. And so my computer crashed and I felt bad. So I had to call him and say, hey, like our plans are going to have to change again. So he said, oh, no problem. I'll just meet you at the store and where you're going to get your computer fixed. And that's where we first laid eyes on each other. And the connection was so good. Like people thought we were actually together for a long time. And so it all started from there.
She downplayed a little bit, but that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah. And so, as you know, well, people that don't know, we both have previous relationships. So he has a daughter from a previous relationship, and I have a daughter from a previous relationship. And so we were coming together as a blended family. So when we dated, we did some. I think we did a lot of dating with the family. Like we didn't do much dating by ourselves.
Maybe for about the first month or so.
Yeah, the first month, crazy enough, like within the first month, he took me to Mexico. We went out of the country. It was in the first month.
No, we started talking. We met face to face in February. End of March, I took her to Mexico.
Okay, that's just past the month.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So we went to Mexico. My mom was like,
it was a trip from work, and so I was able to bring a guest, and so I just invited her out. She came with me.
So we did that.
You gotta have a lot of game when you just met and you could take her out of country and do all kinds. You gotta be saying the right stuff.
Yeah, he was a blessing because he could have really been psychotic and had me like in a ditch somewhere. So, which thank God he wasn't. But I mean, like everything just really lined up for us. Our communication, how he worked with his daughter, because it was important. One of the conversations we had, I was like, I need to meet your mother and I need to meet your daughter, because I wanted to see, it was very important that he had a solid relationship with the women in his life. Because I've been in a situation where I dated somebody and they said that their mother was and their grandmother was the greatest thing. And then I saw them almost get in a physical altercation with them. So that was very important that I see how they interacted. And he saw his daughter was in college and he would go up and see her every weekend. His mother, he would go to breakfast with her frequently. So that was very important, and I loved to see that. And I think that's what actually helped fuel the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
On your part, yeah, I guess so. Plus, I was just fine.
It was the bow tie. I'm not gonna lie. When we saw each other, When I saw him on the dating website, he had his little picture. He had his little bow tie, and his hat on. It was cute.
Cowboy with bow tie.
No, not a cowboy. It wasn't a cowboy hat.
A derby hat.
Yes.
A little derby hat,
So it was, and he had a little vest on. He was cute, I must say. So, but that was very important because I needed somebody that was going to be in my life that's going to be able to treat me and my daughter very well. So that's something that I looked for. And we did a lot of, like I said, after a while, we did a lot of dating as a family.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was very important. Although our girls didn't get a relationship that we would have liked to, but I think it's very difficult because one was already in college and the other one was in the house. So it's just harder to build that relationship when you're not constantly together.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think during our dating, I mean, we were very deliberate about having the girl. I don't even know if we were deliberate. It was almost by we had to, right? Because I had been married for 20 years, got divorced, and my daughter was with me, and Tamara, of course, Brianna was with her. And so if we were going to do something together on the weekends, we were doing it, we had to bring our daughters as well. And so I think our daughters were such a big part of our lives. It was just kind of the natural progression, right? And normally I think you wait longer, and I think we had the intention on waiting longer for bringing our girls into the relationship. But our relationship moved so quickly that it just kind of worked that way. Probably, maybe too fast for
we old. I don't think
for
it was
the
too
girls.
fast.
But they're young, especially for Brianna. Brianna was like 12
She was
years
12.
old. So that was a lot on her.
But I think
it worked. I mean, we meshed.
Did work.
We had some great times. It was just,
I think in that aspect though, I think it did work, but I think it's just harder when you are blending families when the kids are older, but because they're kind of set and they are kind of comfortable with certain things being certain situations being certain ways. So I think even if we would have waited, it still would have been a difficult because now it's the reality. Like I have to share my mom with this other person. I've never had to. Like I got divorced when she was 1, so she's never had to share me. She never had to conceive. I didn't date much. She's known me to date one other person, so she's just used to it always being me and her.
I'll say this for anybody who's considering getting married, and there's kids that are already in the picture. You got to really look at that, and you have to be honest with yourself if you're willing to go down that road, because it's not easy, right? So you can really love the woman or the man. You can even love the kids, and love, especially when you're first meeting. You got the Google eye love that kind of sees past all the problems. But there's a logical side and a real side to a blended family that you have to be prepared for, because you're now having to also deal with the insecurities and all that come with a blended family, and kind of introducing all that. And if you don't do it right, I don't even know if you can do it right. It's just you just don't know what you're in for, and you have to really, really, really be prepared to come in and have that unconditional love and walk them through that, as well as walk through your own stuff too. So,
because it's a lot of moving parts when you're a blended family.
Yeah.
Also with even the racial stuff, even if you're not a blended family as far as children, but just blending races or different cultures or anything, like if you have two Black people, but one is from, let's say, somebody from the Bahamas or somebody, and the other person is from the US, like there's cultural differences or just, so you have to understand that. For us, like
but see, even on that level though, if the adults have differences, the adults work through those differences. It's a whole different level. But when you have children in there as well,
they should, but sometimes they don't.
But it's still their stuff that they got to work out. But when there's children in there, now you have to work out your stuff in the children's
Well, I'm
study.
not knocking that. I'm
And
just
it's
adding to the topic.
yeah, I'm just saying it's a very real thing that I think people have to really consider, because after you're in it, Tamara, I'm not saying you're disagreeing with me. I'm expounding on the point.
Oh,
see, this is the conflict in marriage.
Well, I had moved on, but you're bringing it back.
This is the side for caressing, for loving. This is the side for correction. They don't want to listen.
Anyway, obviously, one
Don't
of us
do that. Don't do that.
Moved on. No, he is not a physical abuser at all. Nowhere near. So
she beats me though.
No, I don't. Nobody put hands on anybody.
Me.
So, okay, Tamara, you were talking about race and talking about how, for you too. Okay.
Yeah.
So you could go back into that.
Yes. So
how was it for you, with your different race?
So his previous wife was also African American. And crazy enough, we went to the same college, just different years. But my ex-husband is African American. I had never dated outside of my race. So he was the first person that I've ever dated outside of my race. So when I got ready to bring him home to meet the parents, to meet my dad, nobody really knew what to expect. And so it was really kind of like something on a comedy show, because
you didn't give them any warning, like you didn't tell them beforehand or anything, or it's just like show up.
Well, I thought it would be easier if he just showed up. Like my mom had already known. Like my mom he had met my mom prior to that, because my mom came to Dallas, and so they met and had a conversation, but he came home with me to meet my dad, and he knew there was a Dominick. He just didn't know that Dominick was a different race. And so we were kind of all wondering how that was going to play out. And it was funny because when we pulled up, they live in a very rural area. So it's like big open land, and you just kind of drive up to their front door. And there's a storm door. And my dad's sitting on the porch because he was waiting. It's a 10-hour drive. He's sitting on the front porch waiting for us. So he pulled up. And Dom gets out the car. I'm still sitting in the car, and I eventually get out. And my mom saw us, but she's standing in the doorway looking through the storm door at us to see what's going to happen. And so I think we were dropping Brianna off. But anyway, so that was interesting because everybody kind of was just quiet to see how everything was going to play out.
It was like an audience. Everyone was like positioned to see what was going to happen in this encounter.
So, and how was it?
It was fine. I got out, I shook his hand, introduced myself, and he said, "How old are you?" I told him how old I was. He said, "You look like you're almost as old as me." And so I was like, well, I'm not, this is my age, but whatever. And ever since then, we were fine.
They're like their best of buddies. Like they would get up in the morning and have coffee together and have conversations. Yeah. And so they are.
That day, I mean, we had that was like a little awkward hello, whatever. But then after that, then we sat down to eat, and I prayed over the food, and he liked that. He said, "Oh, you're a church going man." What did he say? You're
probably
something
that
like
sounds
that.
Like he was
and we warmed up, and then that morning we got up and we had, we're both early birds, so we're up 6 a.m. drinking coffee on the patio, and it just goes from there. Now, I mean, I think we're very close. I mean, he's the only man in my life I've ever been able to call dad, because my dad died when I was like a year old, so I never really knew him. So for me, it's something special because it's, I have someone in my life that I can call, as a dad and call dad. So yeah, I mean, it's great for me.
Yeah, that we're actually fortunate because like he's accepted by the family. It's not an issue. My friends don't have an issue. It's more so when we go out, like when we were walking around in Alabama, it was like the looks and the stares, and it's like, really, come on now. And like, so
I do very well with that. I let people know that I know they're looking. I feel very comfortable with it. And,
yeah, he doesn't care.
I let him know that, but
yeah. So we haven't had any of that aspect, issues on that aspect. We do stuff deliberately, like where we live, like when we purchased a home, it was important for us to have some minorities in the neighborhood. We would prefer like to see other interracial couples, but at least to have some minorities in the neighborhood to kind of understand like to what it is. Also, I think as we're looking to move, we're looking at certain things like with schools and stuff, because we just know that sometimes people aren't as open to our situation. But like I said, again, we're fortunate that it's more so not in our family and our friends that present to us to have an issue with what it is. It's people on the outside. And it's sad to say this is 2022 that we still have to deal with that.
But, you know, I think we've gone through some things within ourselves as well. So, you know, I grew up mostly around African-American people. My friends, that was the crowd, the people that accepted me. And so that ended up just naturally who my friends were. And so I thought I was a pretty open-minded and understanding, you know, to different races. And I think like during COVID and all the racial stuff that came up in America, I think we had some pretty hard conversations and difficult conversations that I think we both grew in our understanding, you know, where I thought, especially myself, I really thought that I was a very open-minded and understanding, and realizing that I didn't have the understanding that I thought I had, right? But that comes through because of the love that we have, I think, and the respect we have for one another, that we can challenge one another in those areas and grow from it, right? And be able to learn. And so that kind of translates over into like, well, we're looking for a house now because we're talking about moving. You know, I'm even more aware now that I have to make sure that my family's in a position where we're not going to have any undue hardships, right? You know, put ourselves in a situation where it's going to create conflict that we don't need in our life. And so, you know, that's a new thing for me, really, you know, again, and for my upbringing, and I just move wherever and just do, you know, because just the exposure or the reality of it, I guess, I didn't understand fully until recently.
Yeah, I think it was the conversations because as we were talking about Floyd and Breonna and, you know, all the situations that have been going on at the one time, basically. I mean, we know this has been going on forever, but I think within that, when we were having those conversations, when he got to, he's not just seeing it happen, but we were having conversations about why is it that certain behavior like this, like when we were talking about something, and I was like, as African-American people, we can't just handle certain things like this because of our race. It's already presumed a certain view of certain ways. So we have to handle stuff sometimes differently. And going into that detail, I think really helped with that. Also, as we have a biracial daughter together, we've had deep conversations about that as well. Because we talked about, I said, you know, just in the US, it wasn't, you know, until 2000, I think, if you were biracial, you were considered Black. That was it. That's just what it was. And so understanding like she's biracial, she's Black and Italian, but we talked about like how she's going to be perceived. And so that way she has to understand that certain behaviors are kind of, sometimes she has to act or present a certain way because she can get a title that might not be accepting because she will be considered Black. And so we had to talk through that. And I think going through all the racial issues that have been heightened during the pandemic recently and forcing us to have this conversation, I think it opened it up to everything. And so like stuff that we're dealing with now, like making sure that we choose a neighborhood that hopefully will not pose, you know, unwanted threats or issues that we don't need. So that having those conversations, whether you want them or not, because I'm the type of person, I don't like talking about feelings. I don't like talking about my emotions and all that. And he forces me to do that. But it's something that has to happen. So if you're going to be with somebody that's a different race or a different culture, conversations like that must happen, period. Because you have to have an understanding and a respect for the other person, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I love what you said in terms of conversation must happen, and that's just letting us know how important communication is.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to communicate, you have to have these conversations. Awesome.
Yeah.
And it's no longer just, sometimes we are quite, content with just, it's just us two and maybe our kids and our little circle, and not realizing that, hey, it's not just us. I mean, yes, we want to keep that circle safe and protected, but the things that we do in our home, outsiders could influence what happens. And so you have to kind of like think. So the fact that you're coming together and thinking about those issues, like, just even trying to figure out where to live in terms of, outside of you, things that are happening outside of you, will be something that people don't even normally consider. So you have to think like almost twice as hard about things to make sure that your family is intact and that you're staying healthy. So that is definitely something that couples need to, and whether or not they're biracial, biracial couples definitely have to consider.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of the conversations that I think a lot of the stuff between conversation or just events that I think made us grow closer. They were probably the more traumatic and eye-opening events. Like I think when we got married, I loved you, but when we went through the miscarriages and all that, I can honestly say that I had a deeper love for you because I knew that is yours. You were a person that's going to be there for me no matter what. And it was scary. But you had my back, and it wasn't just my back that you had Brianna's back, which Brianna's my daughter. So I knew that if something was going to go, like, I know he loves me and I know he loves his daughters and his mom, but he loves my daughter too. But I knew that he would do whatever he had to do to take care of her. So when we had our first miscarriage, it was very traumatic. And so she was 15 weeks. So we already knew, we were excited. We had got the girls prepped, and then I lost the baby the next day. And then I had to have the procedure Tuesday, and I hemorrhaged. So I had to go back to the hospital. And with that, he got my mom to the hospital to stay at the hospital. He would go and get Brianna and take her to school, pick her up from school. I don't know when he slept. I don't even know if he did sleep, but he made sure everything and all the different moving parts were together. He brought his daughter down, his oldest daughter. She was in school. She wanted to come down and see me. He drove. He made sure everything was taken care of to make sure that I didn't have to worry about anything but myself. So I appreciate that. I know a lot of marriages and stuff, when they get through the rocky times, sometimes they break apart. And I think knowing that you have that support for somebody, and even the communication. So after he went through all of that, I was like, Dom, we both went through something traumatic. Like, I need you to go get help because you're not dealing with your emotions. And so we worked on, that's when we had to work on the VA stuff to get you the VA stuff in there. So, but he listened. He's like, I'm fine. But he still went through the process and listened to help what he needed to do. And then in turn, he and my mother was on me and saying, well, Tamara, you need to go get help. And so, he did everything. Like, I remember you looked up like church organizations and stuff that help, deal with miscarriages. So he even went out and did that. So what the other person may need, and you do it, you do stuff to help them and get them organized, but you also receive the information and take the advice of the loved one. And I think sometimes that's missed in relationships. I'm not gonna lie, my previous marriage, that was not something I did. I did not take any advice from him at all. So I do take your advice and things. I may fight him on it.
Thomas agreeing.
This is the only woman, the only person in my life I can argue with when we agree. I understand it.
Y'all do that quite well.
Yeah. But I was, as you were saying this stuff, I was thinking of, because Linda, you had mentioned about single people listening in, and we went through a lot of stuff in our first 5 years of marriage. When we probably covered 10, 15 years in 5 years, and some pretty, just through health stuff, through the miscarriages, just through whatever, right?
And several deaths.
And I think we served one another, I think, in that. And I think back, and I joke around a lot about what I do and what I did, whatever, but this is being serious. The day that we first met face to face, when her computer broke, we met I changed what we were doing, and we met at the Apple store. And I came in, I took charge, I got her laptop fixed, took care of it, went to dinner, and just went on. She didn't ask me to do that, it's just what we did. And then when this is even before we were married, when your aunt passed away, right?
Yeah.
And she had to go deal with some stuff with her mom to go help with that. And it was going to be Brianna's birthday, and I took care of everything to set up for Brianna's birthday. Again, I'm not saying, oh, I'm so great, but what I'm saying is, for the people that are single, I think that's just who I am, right? And so, if while you're single and you're dating someone, let them show you who they are. All right. Like Tamara, what made me marry Tamara and be okay with marrying Tamara, because I was married for 20 years and got divorced. It was very difficult for me to get remarried. And so what convinced me to marry Tamara is she genuinely served me. She did things that were to make me feel good, at her expense, or very selfless things just to make sure that my needs and I was happy. And those are things that I keyed into. I didn't have to ask for them. It's just who she was, right? And so I think when you're dating someone looking for a marriage, let them show you who they really are, right? And believe them when they show you. And that way, when you're in the marriage and these things are coming up, it's just who people are. Now, marriage can still stress who people are, and they can respond different ways. But at least you're entering with the right foundation of person that you're entering into this lifelong thing. Because marriage is hard work. It's it's two people becoming one, all that good stuff. But you want to know that you're doing life with someone that is doing life with you. You want to know you have someone in your corner that's committed, because it's so much better when you have someone like that. When you have your successes and your failures and you're not alone, you have someone to share them with, to go through the good and the bad time. I went through some health things, and they scared me. They really shook me to the core, because when your health fails you, you're helpless. To me, I felt very helpless. If we need money, I can go make some money. If we need to do something, I can go make something happen. But when your health fails you, you can't buy that. You can't. I never went to a doctor or a hospital by myself. All right. And Tamara has a medical background, being an occupational therapist, and when I had a procedure at the VA, and the nurses didn't do nothing. Tamara did everything. They just said, make sure he don't fall down. Because she did everything. So I had the best care of everybody on the floor.
Wow.
Right. And so knowing you have someone like that with you, it's priceless. It's beyond anything, and so don't shortchange that as well. Don't sell that out for someone who's not worthy of that as well. I think that I tell people, I'm not just happily married, I'm madly in love. That's my thing, so
He fell in love when I washed his dishes in his apartment. That's
No,
what that was.
look, I have my routine. I wash my dish. I kept a good place. And then when Tamara came, she started taking care of it, so I stopped. I did. Look, I didn't have all my stuff unpacked, so I had boxes because I wasn't staying there. And so she couldn't stand that. But I kept my stuff.
It was a lot of boxes.
Yeah, because I had stuff. I just got out of a marriage, 20-year marriage. You know, I shouldn't say
I think
just,
I ended up washing every dish in your house because I would cook and I can't cook in the kitchen with dirty dishes.
Yeah, that's cool. She did all that, but I kept.
That's
my routine.
What got him.
I had my routine. I meal prepped. I cleaned my. I had my routine. You know, but yeah, when you came along, you took over. You did.
Yeah, I have to. It is important for me to make sure that he was all right for all the medical stuff. I had to push him to go and do the stuff and take care of him because he knows. Like one of my fears is something happens to him, and he's like, "Oh, there's insurance," and I really don't care about that. It's something happens to him, like that's part of me. Like, how am I going to function? Like, if something happens to him, that is one of my fears.
And for me, it's the medical stuff it's when you're at your most vulnerable point and you have someone else there. And sometimes, you don't even want to make your own decisions because you're scared. And you don't want to tell anybody you're scared. You want to be strong. And for someone just to be able to come in and take control, just like she's saying, I took control of this other situation thing. She does the same for me. And I don't have to be strong and I don't look weak. She comes in and makes it happen. And that's, you complement one another and you take care of one another.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Awesome. I love the part, Dominic, where you talk about being in a marriage where you have to put in the work. And that's one of the things that we teach here at Unique Couples. Marriage is work. Just like how we go on our jobs Monday to Friday or however your work schedule is, you have to do the same in your marriage. You have to put in that work. And you said it quite well. Marriage is work and you have to put in that work.
Yeah, and I think if you know it's work, then make it worth it, right? Don't work on something that you shouldn't be working on. Choose wisely. I think we can be impatient. We can just, we feel like we got a clock ticking, so we have to be with someone that's not worthy of our work. And I think that's why people give up, because they start working and it's just not worth it, right? And so validate, make sure that you know who you're getting married to, make the right choice. And look at it for what it is, not for what you want it to be.
Definitely. For those of you who are watching, who are just joining us, we are talking about, Dominick and Tamara are sharing their story, race, conflict, and more. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, put them in the comments, and we will try to get to them before the conversation ends. But if not, we will also come back in and try to answer those questions. So go ahead. Thanks for joining us, Thaddeus, Karen, Deborah, De Niro, Maya, Lynn, and several other persons who are joining us live here on Unique Couple Sunday Night Live on YouTube, Facebook, and those of you who are joining us in How to Strengthen Your Marriage group. Great to see all of you. Go ahead, put your comments and questions in the chat for Dominick and Tamara as we talk about race, conflict, and more. And I love what Dominick said about, he's not just, married, but he is madly in love, right? Yeah. Should be, right? Madly in love as well. Yeah. Yes, definitely. Because the problems will come.
They sure
will come. So, Tamara has your back and you have hers. So it's like, in areas where you need her or she needed you to be strong and to kind of like take over, and you were there for her for that. And she is there for you when you have your issues, and no one has to feel, like you said, like weak or, less of because of it, but you two can draw closer together and be strong for each other.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's teamwork. So Team Antonino is doing an awesome job. You work great as a team.
Yeah.
Yes.
So talk to us about this new addition. So Dominick, you would have been like I don't know if there's a like age difference and all that stuff, right? But you're now, or that was last year, right? So at a different age, and now, new marriage. I don't know. Did y'all have a conversation before to say, well, no kids, before while y'all were dating, or was it okay?
Yeah.
You can try it. Open to that. What was that like?
Yeah. So we've been married for 5 years. I'm actually on May 8th, I'll be 51 years old. And so, I wasn't looking on having kids. I was done. I was ready to start living that life where you could travel and do whatever you want. And Tamara, we had talked about it beforehand. She said, "Well, I guess I just won't have any more kids." I don't think she really realized what she was saying though, because after we got married, she was realizing how
But we
important
also
that was
had
to
a
her.
conversation too about, well, if it happens, it happens.
Yeah. We agreed that we weren't going to try to make it happen, and we weren't going to avoid. We weren't going to use protection or nothing like that. We're just, whatever happens, happens. And I think she tried a lot more than I tried not to.
He was not trying. You can't say you try not to if you want to play all the time.
As good as good.
So he could want to play, just not have the results of playing.
Yeah, well, life does not work like that.
Yeah. So I laugh at myself because, when I talk about Zoe and, she's a blessing. She really is. And then I tell people, oh, she's such a blessing. I didn't want to have a kid, but after 4 miscarriages, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. After 4 miscarriages, I can't be surprised that we had a baby. Right?
Exactly.
So we kept getting pregnant. But yeah, it was, I think when we were pregnant, it was hard on me. It was very difficult for me.
It was hard on both of us,
but
was for different reasons.
Yeah, I think for me it was a reality. Oh God, I'm actually gonna have a kid now. But then also the worrying of, because you're expecting something bad to happen, all through the whole thing. But then when, after she's born, she's just wonderful. Now she's down there hollering right now, but
yeah,
she's.
I told Brianna to give her some Cheerios, so she's about to get some.
Yeah,
Cheerios.
But she's. There's nothing like when you come home and your baby just lights up and smiles and so happy to see you. Those are those things again that are priceless, that they're worth living for.
It was an adjustment because I have a 17-year-old and now a 9-month-old. So when I had my 17-year-old in my 20s, is your 20s body. So, it was nothing. Like I was double dutching and everything, 8-9 months pregnant with my 17-year-old. It was like nothing. Like, okay, yes, my belly grew, but that didn't slow me down from anything. And then so when I got pregnant with Zoe, I was like,
how old are you? 42? How old are you?
Yeah.
I got
Why
a young.
You gotta be
I got because I'm proud. I got me a young girl. I got me a tenderoni. You may be young, but you're ready.
You're silly.
Facebook, you don't own the rights to this music.
Anyway,
ready to love.
So as I'm in my 40s and my husband tells my age, it's different because now, especially after I've had these miscarriages and I've had surgery, so I'm like, I know I have to work twice as hard to try to look like get my body back because I want my husband to still look at me. And so I'm like, okay, I gotta walk. So I'm walking and walking. I'm walking 2-3 miles a day to try to keep my body right. Also, you're at more of a risk as you get older of having blood clots and all these issues. So I'm like, look, I'm not going to have any of that. And then I start having problems with this pregnancy. I start having what were contractions. I didn't know they were contractions. I just thought I was having a little bit of slight pain, but I was having contractions, and the doctor was like, "You got to stop." And I was like, well, maybe if I just decrease. She's like, no, you have to stop. And it was like, it was hard for me to accept it because it's like, although I'm like, okay, I don't want to go into a preterm labor, but I don't want to have blood clots. I don't want to have all these health issues. I don't want to have heart problems. I don't want to have any other issues. So it's like a fear of, because I'm older, having a baby, like I don't want to have these issues. But anyway, needless to say, had her, I stopped walking, but I had her and she's fine. But, You
And
know,
you're fine too.
well, thank you. But the reality is like it's best to have a baby when you're young because
It is
having to
it's a young man's game.
just getting up every 2 hours at night. I think I had lost my mind a little bit because there was no sleep. And then it's like you're worried, like, okay, are they asleep? Are they still breathing? So now, even in between, you're not really sleeping. So it's like 20 something hours of not sleep. And then to say, oh, just sleep when the baby sleeps. Yeah, that's not realistic. Because on the other hand, like you have all this other stuff to do.
Mhm.
So I'm burnt out, but I'm going to keep doing it. So it was a difficult. So now, while I'm trying to manage, because everybody said, oh, well, you got a senior and you got a living babysitter. Well, that's not the reality because, as you know, when you're a senior in high school, you have a whole plethora of things you got to do. And you can't just say, no, you can't go to your prom. Like, you got to watch your sister. No, you can't go to your, senior picnic, or you can't do your events. And then on top of that, our senior is at a performing arts school. So she has orchestra performance, band performance. She has violin rehearsal. Then she has mariachi. And she has all this stuff she has to do that I'm driving her around to, or trying to keep up with her stuff because she might not be home till 9-10 o'clock. And so, and then I got the 9-month-old that I'm taking to swimming lessons. So it's like there's a schedule of just stuff all the time. So just because there's a person to help watch the baby don't mean that they can help watch the baby, because
That is indeed true.
I think it's something you just got to be committed to doing.
which I am very committed. I love my baby.
Tamara is a very good mother. She really is, and I think as a couple we've decided, that Tamara wasn't going to work, and so we have the luxury of being able to make that decision, and that allows her just to solely focus on the kids. And I think if she was working, I don't know how we would do all this other stuff.
And I don't know how I did it with the 17-year-old, because remember I said I was divorced by the time she was 1. And I was working. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was working like 3 part-time jobs. And when she was 2, I decided to go back to school, to grad school. I have no idea how I did all of that. And now I'm struggling with what I'm doing now.
Mhm.
And I must say, like, since we've been on, the longest I've been away from my daughter was about 30 minutes. This one, the Zoe, the one I have, the 9-month-old, 30 minutes. Today is probably the longest, because as I'm on this show, and she has screamed and cried most of the show. Like, we are.
She's quiet now.
Yeah, Brianna's playing the violin.
Oh,
She loves classical music.
But you figure it out.
Yeah.
You figure out what works for you, and you commit to it. You roll with it, and you figure it out. And so
Yeah,
you can't put her back in. I mean, she's here.
I wouldn't want to put
right?
her back in. She's my little blessing after all the stuff we've been through.
Yeah.
And it, like he said, it's great when she looks at you and she's laughing and she's smiling, and she has this little thing, like she likes to squint her eyes and laugh at me. She likes to make faces at me. She has a sense of humor. It's funny. A 9-month-old, you see a sense of humor.
Yeah, I wonder where she got that from.
Yes,
So,
Dom.
yes, I know we're wrapping up. There is something I know you mentioned, like, this is like 4. You said 4 miscarriages, and then your miracle, Zoe. What was that like? Was there a point where you're like, okay, no, we're not going to do this again, or was it just something that was just like happening and surprise each time? Because obviously you said you didn't try to prevent it from happening. You would just allow it to take its natural course.
I think after the first miscarriage, I think subconsciously I was like, I lost my baby, and I was like, I want her to come back to me. So I think subconsciously I was at that point after the first one that I was like, I want my baby back. And so when we had the other 3 after that, after the 4th miscarriage, I was like, I'm done.
And we actually started looking at adopting. And we actually started that process of adoption. And then we got pregnant with Zoe. And so, yeah, I think after the miscarriage, the 4th one, oddly enough, it took 4 of them. But we had just said it's too much on us. It was just too much. So we went the adoption. We were trying to look at the adoption route.
Yeah. And I honestly, when we had the first pregnancy, we were so excited. And then after the second one, we were like, okay, all right, no heartbeat. Okay. Then the third one, it's like no heart. And then it's like the fourth one was like, okay, we're going in here. And so when we got pregnant with Zoe, it was like,
you just expect the worst.
Yeah, it was like there was no excitement. But then when we saw the heartbeat, we were excited. But then it was like, okay, we got to make it to 15 weeks because that's when we lost the first one. We got to make it to the 15 weeks. Okay, we made it to the 15 weeks. Okay, all right. Well, we got to make it to the next point. All right, well, okay, maybe if we make it to 6 months. And then it was always like this constant word, okay, we have a goal to try to make it here. Let's try to make it here. Let's try to make it here. And it's just constantly on our mind. And then even like with the delivery, it was scary. Like, okay, we're doing a C-section and, things can go wrong. We're in the middle of a pandemic. And it's like, what, like, I don't want anything to go wrong. And so it was a lot. But I think once we finally once we finally was like, this is not meant for us, that's when it happened.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What advice would you give couples who are, facing that, maybe struggling through miscarriages or just wanting a child and not being able to do that and still not even thinking about the adoption route? What advice would you?
I think you can't isolate yourself, and that's with anything. You've got to reach out and get support because you may not realize the toll it's taking on you, or you think you're strong enough to deal with it. You've got to reach out, and there's so many people that have gone through the same thing, and it's surprising because you start feeling like it's only you, even though it's not you, only you. I mean, you've got to reach out. You've got to open up. You've got to process those feelings. You've got to get whole yourself. I think that's the first. Then, if it's something you want to pursue, we went to a fertility clinic, to see what if there was anything there that was going on. And so, there's options medically that you can do if that's what you want to do. And then, if adoption is something that you're interested in, I would recommend that you look at that as well and start, just going to call somebody about it or an organization doesn't mean you're leaving with a kid. It's not like, pet adoption where you walk in, you walk out. There's a big education process. And so if it's something that you're open to, get educated on it and then make your decision. You don't have to make your decision first. And so I would say one is just make sure you yourself are whole and you're getting the help that you need. And then also, if it's something that's important, then you just continue to look at your options and be open to them.
I think the advice I would definitely say is talk about it. If you are having those issues of infertility or miscarriages, when I went through mine, I did feel alone. I didn't talk to anybody in the beginning, and I did feel very alone. Then finally, eventually, okay, well, I had a miscarriage. And then you start hearing other people have miscarriage, and you realize this is actually more common than what you would think. And so as you hear these people and how they've gone through it and what they've done, or it's just hearing, the emotions that they felt. One, you don't feel so alone because it's like, I got to a point where I was like angry at God. Like, why can't I have a child? And it's like, there's other people that may be feeling the same way. So when you're able to talk about it, that actually gave me the strength to go to the counseling and get the counseling that I need. And so definitely find, even if it's just that one person that you can console with about it. It is probably best to find someone that's actually been through it, because when you're talking to someone that has not been through it, they don't quite understand your emotions that you are feeling. Like, I love my mother to death and she loves me. And she had not gone through a miscarriage. So she didn't quite understand like some of the emotions that I have. So it wasn't a connect on the miscarriage topic. So find that. And then once you find that person, then you'll find other resources that can help you, whether you go to counseling. And if you do go to counseling, go to a counselor that specializes in miscarriages or loss or infertility, because they will have a better understanding on how to help you through the process. So that's the main thing. If you're dealing with miscarriages, infertility, all of that, talk to somebody that's going through it, and you guys can be each other's helpmate.
And Vito and Linda, you guys have a large church, people, large following that goes to church. So I want to throw this in there as well. Is not every pastor is skilled in dealing with these things. In fact, most pastors are not. And so while pastors have their place and they pray us through things and work with us through things, you need someone that specializes in this area to help you through it. So sometimes we think our pastor is everything in the world and we put too much on them. So I would encourage you to get professional help as well. And don't think you're okay, because you're not. You've got to process it.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just definitely, because help is always available. And we teach that, and we say that help is always available, because we don't ever want people to feel alone, as if they have to struggle through that themselves and alone. Okay, so help is always available, and then finding the right source of help. So yes, you can have support groups that help you, other persons who went through similar situations. Find the professional organizations that you can get in those groups, and definitely finding the support, the counselors and the help from persons who have specifically deal with those areas will definitely make a difference in your marriage, and just making sure that you're whole, because you want to show up whole, right? Whether it's before your actual biological children come, or if you're adopting, and just being whole in the relationship, whether or not you decide that, hey, this is something you want to do. Maybe it's just the two of you, and you two still need to be whole together and loving each other, even without maybe the children in your family. But just
I do want to add one more thing. If you had a miscarriage and there's other children, like we had our girls, they need counseling too, because not only are you going through the loss, they're going through the loss too. So
I didn't realize how much my oldest daughter, I didn't realize how much it impacted her, because she was off at college, and we had just did a gender reveal to our girls the day before we lost our first baby, Angelina. So it was, I didn't realize it. And me, I just kind of keep moving, right? And so within that, I didn't know how to deal with stuff anyways. And so later on, I found out from her, talking with her, when she started getting some help and some therapy, that she had to process and deal with that as well. So that's a good point, is don't forget them as well, that they need to process it, because they have they dealt with a loss as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said earlier, blending these families, you also have to consider the children and the issues that they're going through. So as parents, you'll have your issues, the kids will have those. So kind of like plan with all of that in mind, even as you plan on, everything for your family as well. Yes. Alish D Hope says find someone who specializes. Very good. Hello, Shandia. Thanks for joining us, Gregory. I don't see any of the questions. We had a statement there.
Yes, I didn't go through a miscarriage, but I had my time of infertility, and it was not easy.
Yeah, it's not.
Okay.
I think it's probably more frustrating and discouraging than anything, going through infertility. We've had a couple of friends and neighbors that have gone through that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. So we've definitely had a great conversation today about race, conflict, and a whole lot more that you guys went through. Medical issues, the miscarriages, just dealing with outsiders and how they're looking at your relationship. So go ahead. we're getting ready to wrap up. What final advice would you give, or final thoughts that you have for our viewers? You could go ahead and say that, and then let our viewing audience know how they can get in touch with you. We know that you have your podcast and everything, so you can let them know how they can get in touch with you and what you're doing.
Okay. Yeah, just the advice is just, if you, I think everybody needs to get counseling and help if you have that. Also, if you're married or considered married, respect respect each other's differences and have conversation. Just through all of it, communication is key. Whether it's race issues, cultural issues, infertility, miscarriages, blended families, communication is key.
I think for me, I say it on any type of marriage show that I'm on. As I tell you this, is you've got to be in it to serve the other person. That's just the bottom line. Don't come into a marriage for what that person can do for you. Go into a marriage because you want to serve that person for the rest of their life, for the rest of your life. And I think as long as you both continue that attitude of serving one another with that unconditional love, and you serve beyond yourself, I think then you can make it, and you'll get through those things.
And so out of all of this, the miscarriage and everything, the counseling, I started It's Okay with Tam Tam because of the fact that I felt alone. And so I talk about various topics, and some of it was race related. I finally talked about the miscarriages. So I created that so people can share it and share their, hear stories of other people so they know that they're not alone and they can hear what other people have gone through. And that's when I created It's Okay with Tam Tam, which is on Facebook. You can like and follow my page, It's Okay with Tam Tam, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel, It's Okay with Tam Tam. And then, yes, and our email. You can email me at itsokaytamtam@gmail.com.
Awesome. Yeah, so there you have it, folks. It's Okay with Tam Tam. You can check her out on YouTube and on Facebook. Tune into those podcasts. Dominick and Tamara, we just want to thank both of you for taking time out of your schedule to be here with us this evening. And I know Zoe miss you guys, but she's going to get you back very shortly. But we just want to thank you, and I know our viewing audience, they had a great time.
Yeah, still put in your takeaways. Those of you who are watching, go ahead, show some hearts. Those of you who are on Facebook, put in some hearts and show some love to Dominick and Tamara. Go ahead. It's okay. Tamara,
That's okay.
Yeah. I have to actually look. Okay. Yes. And go ahead.
On the Facebook, It's Okay. It's just okay. No AY. Just It's Okay Tam Tam with Tam Tam on YouTube and Facebook.
Okay. No AY.
So we had fun.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
As always. And we're members of the marriage club as well. So for all those who are looking at it and jumping in, you need coaches in your life, and your marriage is probably the most important thing that of your life that's going to determine your success. So get coaches, link up with Vito and Linda, and learn more. You can always grow and become better. So make the investment.
Yes, like Dominick is saying, you want to be a part of the Unique Couples Marriage Club. Motivation, inspiration, and transformation. You get your spouseology degree when you are part of the Unique Couples Marriage Club. We want to see marriages thrive. So we want you to take your marriage to the next level. So come and join us in the Unique Couples Marriage Club.
Yeah, so we definitely talk about, those trips of love, the things that you do on a daily basis to keep your relationship great, instead of just, that just one bucket splash of something. So definitely go ahead and join us in the Unique Couples Marriage Club. It is an investment you make in your marriage, but it is definitely going to be worth it. A small investment that will give you big rewards.
Yeah, so we had fun this evening with you on Unique Couples Sunday Night Live. Here at Unique Couples, we are building stronger couples, healthier marriages, and happier families. We love you guys. Have a great evening. See you soon.
Bye.